The research vessel Horizon hung motionless against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars, its sophisticated sensor arrays focused on what shouldn't exist. Dr. Elena Martinez stood at the primary observation window, her dark eyes fixed on the massive structure that stretched across the view like a metallic web. After 15 years of deep space exploration, she had thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. Another sweep complete, Dr. Lieutenant Sarah Chen announced from her station. The structure's energy signature is still fluctuating. It's like it's trying to cancel itself out. Elena nodded slowly, her mind racing through possibilities. The megastructure before them defied conventional engineering principles. Its surface seemed to absorb both light and radar signals, making it nearly invisible to standard detection methods. They had only found it because of the Horizon's experimental quantum resonance scanner, technology that wasn't supposed to be field-tested for another 3 years. It's deliberate, Elena said, more to herself than to her crew. This isn't a malfunction. The structure is hiding. Commander David Park joined her at the window, his weathered face reflecting the strange, dim light from the structure. Hiding from what? Before Elena could respond, the ship's AI cut in. Alert. Unknown energy signature detected. A vessel is emerging from the structure. The bridge crew watched as a ship materialized from what had appeared to be solid metal. It was elegant, almost organic in design, with sweeping curves that seemed to flow like liquid. But what caught Elena's attention wasn't its beauty. It was the obvious signs of damage along its hull. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Raj Patel reported, his fingers dancing across his console. "The signal pattern is unusual. The AI is having trouble processing it." Elena straightened her uniform. "Put it through." The main display flickered to life, revealing a being that seemed to be made of crystalline structures and flowing energy. Its form shifted constantly, like watching light play through a prism. When it spoke, its voice was a symphony of harmonics that the ship's translators struggled to process. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Your presence here endangers both yourselves," and the alien's message cut off abruptly as its sensors apparently completed their scan of the horizon. The crystalline being's form pulsed with what Elena's xenobiology training suggested was shock. "You're human." The translator rendered the alien's harmonics into words, but couldn't quite capture the mix of disbelief and what sounded like fear in its tone. "I am Dr. Elena Martinez of the Earth research vessel Horizon," Elena responded, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We mean no harm. We detected unusual quantum signatures in this region and came to investigate." The crystalline being's form flickered rapidly, their equivalent of agitation, Elena guessed. "You detected, but that's impossible. Our quantum masking technology is perfect. No species has ever." It paused, its form stabilizing slightly. "How far are we from your protected space?" Elena exchanged glances with Commander Park before answering. "We're approximately 70 light-years from the nearest human outpost." The alien's reaction was immediate and dramatic. Its crystalline form briefly fragmented into dozens of shifting pieces before reforming. 70 light-years. Through uncharted space, through the dead zones, through the quantum storms. That's not possible. No navigation system could plot a safe course through such chaos. Elena felt a small smile tugging at her lips. "We make our own charts. The Horizon is equipped with real-time quantum mapping capabilities. We plot our course as we go." The silence that followed was profound. When the alien spoke again, its harmonics had shifted to a lower register that made the translator crackle. "You travel blind through the void, without established routes, without guidance beacons. We prefer to think of it as exploring." Commander Park interjected. "That's why we're here. To find new things, to understand them." The crystalline being seemed to consider this for a long moment. When it spoke again, its tone had changed completely. "I am third resonance of the Viridian Collective. And I believe we need your help." A new alert chimed through the bridge. "Doctor," Lieutenant Chen called out, her voice tense. "The structure is changing. It's opening." The massive structure was indeed transforming, sections of it folding away like the petals of an enormous flower. As it opened, more ships became visible, dozens of them, all bearing similar damage patterns to the first. "What you see," Third Resonance said, its form pulsing with what Elena now recognized as urgency, "is all that remains of our civilization. We are refugees, hiding from something that has already consumed countless worlds. We chose this location because we believed it was impossible to reach." The being's form shifted again, taking on a deeper, more intense blue. "But you found us. And if you found us, then they can too," Elena finished, understanding dawning. "What exactly are you hiding from?" The answer came not in words, but in a data burst that filled their screens with images of destruction. Worlds stripped bare of technology. Civilizations reduced to pre-industrial states, and massive geometric ships that moved with terrible purpose through the stars. "The harvesters," Third Resonance said simply. "And they are coming." Elena felt the weight of every eye on the bridge, both human and alien, turned to her. In that moment, she made a decision that would change the course of two civilizations. "Then we better start planning," she said, her voice firm. "Because if there's one thing humans are good at, it's dealing with the impossible." The crystalline being's form shifted to a color Elena hadn't seen before, a warm, golden hue that seemed to pulse with hope. "You would help us, even knowing the danger." Elena smiled, a genuine expression that carried through the video feed. "Third Resonance, let me tell you something about humans. We have a saying. The most dangerous place to be is where it's safe, because if you're never challenged, you never learn to overcome. Your people chose this location because it was impossible to reach. We reached it because impossible is just another problem to solve." As if to punctuate her words, the horizon's sensors began picking up new signals, faint but growing stronger. The harvesters had noticed them after all. "Doctor," Lieutenant Chen called out, her voice steady despite the tension. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple signatures approaching from the quantum dead zone. They don't match any known configurations." Elena turned back to the screen, where Third Resonance's crystalline form had taken on a deeper, more urgent blue. "It seems we're about to get a crash course in why you're hiding. But first, I think it's time you learned why humans don't hide." She gestured to her crew. "Battle stations, and get me everything we have on these harvesters. It's time to show them something they've never seen before." As the bridge erupted into controlled activity, Elena couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement beneath her professional exterior. This was why humanity had come to the stars, not just to observe, but to engage, to help, to solve problems that seemed unsolvable. And perhaps, she thought as she watched her crew prepare for what was coming, to remind the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful force wasn't the ability to hide from danger, but the courage to face it head-on. The data streamed across the horizon's main display in cascading waves of information as Third Resonance shared the full history of their conflict with the harvesters. Elena and her crew watched in grim silence as the story unfolded before them. They emerged from the galactic core 3 centuries ago. Third Resonance's harmonics resonated through the bridge. At first, we thought they were another spacefaring species seeking contact. We were wrong. The display showed massive ships, perfect geometric shapes that seemed to deny the very concept of organic design. They moved with terrifying precision, their formations mathematically perfect. "The harvesters don't conquer in the traditional sense," Third Resonance continued. "They collect knowledge, technology, cultural information, everything that makes a civilization unique. Then they leave the stripped worlds behind, their inhabitants reduced to primitive states, with no memory of what was taken from them." Commander Park leaned forward, his eyes narrowing at the tactical display. "They're methodical. Each approach vector is perfectly calculated for maximum efficiency. No wasted movement. Precisely. Third Resonance's form pulsed with approval at the observation. Their tactics are beyond predictable. They're mathematical certainties, which is why we chose to hide here, in space that defies mathematical prediction. Elena watched as Lieutenant Chen's hands flew across her console, correlating the incoming data with the Horizon's own sensor readings. The approaching vessels will reach our position in approximately 6 hours, Chen reported. Their course suggests they're using standard search patterns. Standard? Elena raised an eyebrow. You mean they don't adapt their tactics? Third Resonance's crystalline form shifted to a deeper blue. Why would they? Their methods have proven successful against every civilization they've encountered. They have no need to change what works. A slow smile spread across Elena's face, the kind of smile that had always made her professors nervous back at the academy. Lieutenant Chen, show me the quantum storm patterns in the surrounding sector. The tactical display shifted, revealing swirling masses of quantum instability, regions of space where the normal rules of physics became more like suggestions. To most species, these areas were considered navigational hazards to be avoided at all costs. To humans, they were opportunities. Third Resonance, Elena said, her voice taking on the tone her crew had learned to recognize, the one that meant she was about to suggest something either brilliant or insane, or possibly both. You said your people chose this location because it was mathematically unpredictable. But you're still thinking in terms of static defense. What if we use that unpredictability offensively? The crystalline being's form flickered with confusion. I don't understand. Commander Park did, though. His eyes widened as he looked at the display. The quantum storms. We could use them as cover. No, more than that. We could use them as weapons. Impossible. Third Resonance's harmonics shifted to a sharp, discordant tone. No navigation system can function reliably within a quantum storm. The variables are infinite. A purely computational system can't. Elena agreed. But human pilots don't rely solely on computers. We've learned to read the patterns, to feel the flow of space itself. Lieutenant Chen here holds the record for quantum storm navigation in the Sol system trials. Chen looked up from her console, a fierce grin on her face. The storms around Jupiter are worse than these. These are practically calm waters in comparison. Third Resonance's form pulsed rapidly as it processed this information. You would deliberately enter a quantum storm. Risk total atomic dissolution for a tactical advantage. Risk is relative, Elena replied. Right now, we have 6 hours before the harvesters arrive with overwhelming force. They expect us to either run or hide, both of which would ultimately fail against their superior numbers. So instead, we're going to do something they've never encountered before. She turned to her crew, her voice carrying the weight of command. Lieutenant Chen, plot us a course through the nearest storm system. Commander Park, I want every scrap of data we have on the harvester's ship configurations. If they're as mathematically perfect as our friends say, that precision might just be their weakness. And us. Third Resonance asked, its form shifting through multiple colors. What would you have the Viridian ships do? Elena studied the tactical display for a moment. How good are your people at following an unpredictable lead? We can adapt if we must, though it goes against our natural inclinations. Good. Elena nodded, because what I'm about to propose is going to seem completely irrational to you. But sometimes, the best way to defeat perfect logic is with perfect chaos. As she began outlining her plan, Elena couldn't help but notice how Third Resonance's crystalline form kept shifting between colors of disbelief and what might have been admiration. The alien was learning what many had learned before, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their ability to think in ways that defied conventional wisdom. The Horizon's engines hummed to life as Chen began their approach to the quantum storm. On the long-range sensors, the harvester ships continued their methodical approach, their formation maintaining that same perfect geometric precision. They were the embodiment of order and predictability, moving through space like pieces on a cosmic game board. They had no way of knowing that humans had long ago learned to flip the board when the game seemed unwinnable. All hands, secure for quantum storm navigation. Elena's voice rang through the ship. Third resonance, have your ships form up behind us. We're about to show the harvesters why humanity thrives in chaos. As the horizon plunged toward the swirling maelstrom of quantum instability, Elena felt that familiar surge of excitement that came with pushing boundaries. The harvesters had never failed in their hunts because they had never encountered a species that chose to dance with uncertainty. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous prey was the one that refused to follow the rules of the hunt. The quantum storm raged around the horizon, reality itself twisting and warping in ways that made the ship's sensors scream in protest. Lieutenant Chen's hands danced across her controls with the precision of a concert pianist, making minute adjustments that kept them from being torn apart by the chaotic forces surrounding them. Port shields holding at 63%, Reg called out from his station. The Viridian ships are maintaining formation, but they're struggling with the turbulence. Elena watched as the quantum distortions created patterns of light that would have driven most navigation systems into shutdown. But Chen wasn't relying on automated systems. Her eyes were fixed on the swirling chaos, seeing patterns that only a human mind could recognize. Third resonance, Elena called out to their alien ally, whose image on the comm screen flickered with the storm's interference. How are your people holding up? We survive. The crystalline being's harmonics were strained. Though I confess, I do not understand how your vessel navigates these conditions. Our sensors can barely maintain coherence. Elena smiled. That's because you're trying to calculate your way through. Lieutenant Chen is feeling her way through. Feeling. Third resonance's form pulsed with confusion. One cannot feel space-time distortions. Actually, you can. Chen spoke up without taking her eyes off her station. Every quantum fluctuation creates a ripple effect. If you stop trying to predict them and just react to them as they come, there's a rhythm to it, like surfing a wave. I do not understand this surfing, Third Resonance admitted, but your ship moves through the chaos with grace. The harvesters will never expect. The alien's transmission cut off as new alerts blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts. Commander Park announced. The harvesters have reached the edge of the storm system. They're holding position. Elena leaned forward, studying the tactical display. The geometric shapes of the harvester vessels hung just outside the quantum storm's influence, their perfect formation unchanged. They're analyzing, trying to calculate a safe path through, which they won't find, Chen added with a grim smile. Because there isn't one. Not if you're looking for mathematical certainty. Elena nodded. And that's our advantage. Third resonance, are your ships ready for the next phase? The alien's image stabilized briefly. Ready, though I still believe this plan borders on madness. Madness is just genius that hasn't been proven yet, Elena replied. Execute on my mark. The next few minutes demonstrated why humanity had survived countless challenges that should have destroyed them. While the harvester ships maintained their perfect formation, analyzing the quantum storm for a solution that didn't exist, the Horizon led its small fleet of Viridian ships in a maneuver that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of trying to avoid the quantum distortions, they used them. Each fluctuation became a slingshot, each reality-warping eddy a source of momentum. Chen's piloting turned the ship into a dancer in the chaos, and the Viridian ships, despite their initial reluctance, began to follow her lead. Harvester vessels are adjusting position, Park reported. They're attempting to establish a containment grid around the storm system. Of course they are, Elena said, because that's the logical response. But they're still thinking in 3 dimensions. Lieutenant Chen, take us up. Up was a relative term in space, but Chen understood. The horizon suddenly angled upward relative to the galactic plane, using a particularly violent quantum distortion to accelerate in a direction the harvester's containment strategy hadn't accounted for. Energy spike, Raj called out. The storm's interference is masking our signature, but they've detected something. They're moving to investigate. Elena watched as the geometric ships began to shift their formation, still maintaining their mathematical precision even as they responded to the unexpected movement. Perfect. They're starting to chase the anomaly. Third resonance. Prepare your ships for Phase 2. Remember, don't think, just react. What your species considers possible continues to redefine our understanding. Third resonance responded, its form shifting through colors of both anxiety and excitement. The horizon continued its wild dance through the quantum storm, leading both the Viridian ships and their harvester pursuers in what appeared to be random patterns. But there was nothing random about it. Every seemingly chaotic movement was bringing them closer to their goal. Harvesters are fully committed to the pursuit, Park announced. Their formation is stretching thin as they try to maintain their grid pattern while following our trajectory. They can't help themselves, Alina said. Their entire strategy is based on perfect mathematical solutions. They physically can't break formation without recalculating every ship's position. And in a quantum storm, calculations are meaningless. Chen finished, her hands still dancing across her controls. Doctor, we're approaching the convergence point. Elena straightened in her chair. This was the moment where her crazy plan would either work spectacularly or fail catastrophically. All ships execute Chaos Protocol on my mark. The Viridian ships, which had been following the horizon's lead through the quantum storm, took up positions around them. Each vessel was battered by the storm, their shields straining against forces that shouldn't be survivable. But they held formation, trusting in the impossible strategy of their human allies. The harvesters are still adjusting their containment grid, Park reported. They're trying to account for our vertical movement while maintaining their search pattern. Their formation is at maximum stretch. Helena allowed herself a predatory smile. The harvesters' greatest strength, their unwavering adherence to mathematical precision, was about to become their greatest weakness. All ships, she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human innovation and adaptability, execute Chaos Protocol. Now, chaos erupted in the heart of the quantum storm. On Elena's command, the Horizon and its Viridian allies did something that violated every principle of space combat. They stopped trying to survive the quantum fluctuations and instead amplified them. Each ship activated their engines at full power, but instead of trying to maintain stability, they deliberately created feedback loops with their shield harmonics. The resulting energy discharge interacted with the quantum storm in ways that defied prediction. Shield resonance at critical levels, Raj reported, his voice steady despite the vibrations shaking through the ship's hull. The quantum fluctuations are being magnified exponentially. Through the main viewport, reality itself seemed to tear apart. The harvester ships, caught in their rigid formation, suddenly found themselves trying to maintain mathematical precision in an environment where mathematics itself was breaking down. Their ships are losing coherence, Park announced, a note of awe in his voice. They can't maintain their grid pattern in this chaos. Elena watched as the perfect geometric formations of the harvester fleet began to distort. Their ships, designed to operate with absolute precision, were being forced to deal with a situation where precision was impossible. It was like watching a supercomputer try to divide by zero, over and over again. Third resonance, Elena called out, "Status of your fleet." The crystalline being's image flickered wildly on the screen, its form shifting through colors faster than the translator could process. Incredible. The quantum disruptions are beyond anything we thought possible. The harvester's predictive systems are failing completely. The tactical display told the story. The harvester ships, unable to break formation without recalculating positions that couldn't be calculated, were being torn apart by the very forces they were trying to control. Their perfect geometric shapes began to crack and splinter as quantum energies ripped through their hulls. Multiple harvester vessels showing critical system failures, Chen reported. They're trying to retreat, but they can't agree on a vector. Their network navigation is breaking down. Elena nodded grimly. Because they're all trying to maintain perfect formation while retreating from something that can't be predicted. Their own programming is trapping them. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the mighty harvester fleet, which had terrorized countless civilizations, fell into disarray. Ships collided as their formation collapsed, while others vanished into quantum eddies, their rigid protocols preventing them from taking the erratic evasive actions that might have saved them. Harvester flagship is transmitting, Raj announced suddenly. On all frequencies. Put it through, Alina commanded. The image that appeared on the main screen was unlike anything they had seen before. Where the Viridians were creatures of crystalline beauty, the harvester was a being of pure geometric precision. Its form was a perfect arrangement of lines and angles that seemed to hurt the eyes to look at. Impossible. The being's voice was a monotone, yet somehow conveyed utter confusion. Your actions defy statistical analysis. Your strategy cannot exist. Elena stood, facing the screen. That's humanity's greatest strength. We don't limit ourselves to what should be possible. We imagine what could be possible, and then we make it happen. You have introduced chaos into order, the harvester continued. You have corrupted mathematical perfection with improvisation. This cannot be allowed. Actually, Elena replied, it not only can be allowed, it must be allowed. Because perfect order is stagnation. Growth requires chaos. Evolution requires uncertainty. You've been harvesting knowledge from other civilizations, but you've never understood the most important knowledge of all. That true advancement comes from embracing the unknown. The harvester's geometric form seemed to glitch, as if unable to process this concept. Your species is dangerous. You do not follow the patterns. You do not adhere to logical progression. We survive, Elena finished. By any means necessary. Now, I suggest you take what remains of your fleet and leave. Because if you don't, we'll show you just how chaotic humanity can be. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the tactical display, the surviving harvester ships were beginning a retreat, their once perfect formation now ragged and disorganized. They're actually running, Park said in disbelief. The most feared force in known space is running from a research vessel and a handful of refugee ships. They're not running from our ships. Third Resonance's harmonics carried a new tone, one of understanding. They're running from an idea. The concept that their perfect system can be defeated not by superior force, but by deliberate imperfection, by chaos. Elena smiled as she watched the harvester fleet disappear into faster-than-light travel, their retreat vectors scattered and uncoordinated. Sometimes the strongest defense isn't an impenetrable wall, but the willingness to embrace uncertainty, to dance with chaos instead of trying to control it. The quantum storm began to settle around them as the energy feedback loops dissipated. The horizon's shields had held, though they were running at barely 20% capacity. The Viridian ships were in similar condition, but they had survived. Something no other species had managed when facing the harvesters in direct confrontation. Third Resonance, Elena called out to their alien ally. I believe it's time we had a discussion about the future. Because if the harvesters return, they'll have learned from this encounter. And next time, they'll be ready for chaos. The crystalline being's form settled into a deep, thoughtful blue. Perhaps it is time for the Viridian Collective to learn some new patterns of our own. Your species has much to teach us about the strength that comes from unpredictability. As the Horizon and its alien allies began the process of recovering from their impossible victory, Elena couldn't help but feel pride in her crew and in humanity as a whole. They had faced an enemy that had conquered through perfect order, and they had won by embracing their most human trait, the ability to thrive in disorder. The stars seemed a little brighter now, the unknown depths of space a little less daunting, because today, humanity had proven once again that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in being the most powerful, but in being the most adaptable. In the days following the harvester's retreat, the massive Viridian structure had transformed from a hiding place into a hub of frenetic activity. The Horizon's crew worked alongside their crystalline allies, sharing knowledge and perspectives that were reshaping both species' understanding of the universe. Elena stood in what the Viridians called their resonance chamber, a vast space where the crystalline beings could gather in their natural form. The walls seemed to pulse with living light, reflecting the excited states of the hundreds of Viridians present. Your victory over the Harvesters has sparked something unprecedented among our people, Third Resonance said, its form shimmering with bands of gold and azure. For the first time in generations, we are questioning our fundamental assumptions about survival. That's what humans do best, Elena replied, watching as Lieutenant Chen demonstrated manual navigation techniques to a group of fascinated Viridian pilots. We question everything, especially our own limitations. We have observed this. Another Viridian, Fifth Harmony, joined their conversation. Its form was older, more complex in its crystalline patterns. Your species appears to derive strength from what we would consider system failures. Your redundancies, your inefficiencies, your tendency toward chaos, these are not weaknesses as we once thought. Commander Park, who had been studying Viridian energy distribution systems, looked up from his datapad. Redundancy isn't inefficiency. It's adaptation waiting to happen. Humans learned that lesson early in our development. Every apparent weakness can become a strength if you look at it from a different angle. The chamber's atmosphere shifted as a new figure entered, First Resonance, the leader of the Viridian Collective. Its crystalline form was massive and intricate, carrying the accumulated wisdom of centuries. The being's arrival brought a respectful hush to the chamber. Dr. Martinez, First Resonance's harmonics filled the space with complex overtones. Our council has reached a decision that will alter the course of our civilization's future. We wish to propose an alliance with humanity. Elena straightened, recognizing the historical significance of the moment. We would be honored, but I'm curious about your reasoning. The Harvesters will return, First Resonance stated simply. They cannot allow the existence of a force that defies their perfect order. When they come back, they will have adapted their strategies, analyzed your methods, prepared countermeasures. Of course they will, Elena nodded. That's what any intelligent species would do. Indeed, but they will be preparing for the chaos they witnessed. They will develop systems to counter the specific type of unpredictability you demonstrated. First Resonance's form shifted to a deeper, more intense blue. What they cannot prepare for is the fact that humans will not use the same strategy twice. A murmur of harmonic agreement rippled through the gathered Viridians. Fifth Harmony moved forward, its form pulsing with scholarly interest. We have been studying your historical records. In every major conflict, humans have succeeded not by being the strongest, but by being the most innovative. You adapt not just to survive, but to thrive in new circumstances. While we hid from the Harvesters, Third Resonance added, your species would have seen them as a challenge to overcome. Where we sought perfect camouflage, you would have sought imperfect but effective solutions. Elena smiled, remembering her academy days. One of our oldest military theorists, Sun Tzu, wrote that supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Sometimes the best way to win is to change the nature of the conflict itself. Precisely. First Resonance's form expanded slightly, encompassing more of the chamber in its resonating harmonics. The Harvesters succeed because they can predict and counter any logical response to their actions. But humans are gloriously illogical. You take pride in finding solutions that shouldn't work, yet do. With an alliance, Third Resonance continued, we can combine our strengths, our precision and your adaptability, our technology and your creativity, our order and your chaos. Commander Park grinned. The Harvesters won't know what hit them. More importantly, Elena added, other species won't have to hide anymore. Together, we can show the galaxy that there's strength in diversity, in approaching problems from multiple angles. Perfect order isn't the answer. Perfect adaptation is. First Resonance's form shifted through a series of colors that the translator couldn't quite capture, something between hope and determination. Then let this be the beginning. Not just of an alliance, but of a new way of thinking. The harvesters believe they are harvesting knowledge, but they understand nothing of true wisdom. They collect information but miss the most vital lesson of all. That growth comes from change, from challenge, from the very chaos they seek to eliminate. As Elena looked around the chamber, she saw human crew members and Viridians working together, each bringing their unique perspectives to shared problems. Lieutenant Chen was already developing new navigation protocols that combine Viridian precision with human intuition. Raj had found ways to integrate human redundancy principles into Viridian communication systems, making them more resilient and adaptable. "You know," Elena said thoughtfully, "Earth has an old story about a reed and an oak tree. The oak was mighty and rigid, while the reed was thin and flexible. When a great storm came, the oak tried to stand firm against it and was broken, while the reed bent with the wind and survived." An apt metaphor, First Resonance observed. The harvesters are the oak, unyielding in their perfection. But together, perhaps we can learn to be the reed, strong enough to endure, flexible enough to adapt, and wise enough to know the difference. As the conversation continued, Elena felt a profound sense of optimism about the future. The harvesters had sought to impose perfect order on a chaotic universe, never understanding that chaos itself was the source of all growth, all innovation, all life. They collected knowledge but missed wisdom, gathered data but missed understanding. But here, in this chamber where crystalline beings of pure mathematics worked alongside humans who thrived on uncertainty, a new kind of strength was being forged. It wasn't the strength of perfect order or pure chaos, but something far more powerful, the strength of conscious adaptation, of chosen change, of deliberate evolution. The harvesters would indeed return, but when they did, they would find something they had never encountered in all their centuries of collection, a force that couldn't be predicted because it refused to be defined by any single approach, a combination of precision and chaos, of calculation and intuition, of order and innovation. They would find humanity and the Viridians standing together, ready to show the galaxy that the greatest power isn't in hiding from change, but in embracing it, ready to prove that the most perfect system isn't one that eliminates chaos, but one that learns to dance with it, ready to demonstrate that sometimes the strongest edge isn't the sharpest or the most precise. It's the one that can adapt to become whatever the moment requires. The stars seemed to shine brighter through the chamber's transparent walls, as if reflecting the hope of this new beginning. The silent edge of space was no longer a void to hide in, but a frontier of endless possibilities. And somewhere out there, the harvesters were about to learn a lesson that humanity had known since its earliest days. The universe doesn't bow to those who demand perfection. It yields to those who embrace imperfection and learn to make it their strength.